They do not let you in. But they do not let you leave either. That is the trap. They keep the door open just enough for you to keep hoping, but locked enough that you never actually enter the relationship. You are not fully gone. You are not fully chosen. You are kept in the middle place, and the middle place is what drains you, because it gives your nervous system just enough contact to keep waiting, but not enough safety to actually rest. This is one of the most painful patterns in avoidant attachment because it does not always look like rejection. Sometimes it looks like a text after silence, a reaction to a story, a memory brought up at the perfect moment, a late reply that sounds warm enough to reopen your heart, a check-in that feels casual on the surface but lands like a door cracking open. And because you have been trying to understand whether the connection is dead or alive, that small opening feels huge. You think, maybe they still care. Maybe they are coming closer. Maybe this is the beginning of something finally changing. But then the door does not open any further. They do not step into the relationship. They do not offer clarity. They do not name what they want. They do not build anything you can stand on. They only keep the opening there, just wide enough for your hope to breathe. This is why this pattern is so confusing. If they wanted nothing, why keep reaching? If they did not care, why keep checking? If they were truly done, why keep the door open? But if they wanted something real, why never let you in? That question can keep you stuck for months, because the cracked door feels like evidence. Evidence that there is still something. Evidence that you are not imagining the bond. Evidence that they are not fully gone. And maybe they are not fully gone. But not fully gone is not the same as fully choosing you. That is the truth this video is going to break down. Avoidant attachment can create a middle place where total loss feels too threatening, but real closeness feels too threatening too. So instead of choosing closeness or choosing distance, they keep access. They keep possibility. They keep a line open. They create a place where you are not completely gone, but you are not fully allowed in either. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Now, let us name what is actually happening. They are not always keeping the connection alive. Sometimes they are keeping loneliness away. That is the part that hurts, because to you, the cracked door feels like hope. To them, it may only be emotional ventilation, a way to let a little warmth in without opening the whole house, a way to feel less alone without taking on the responsibility of being close, a way to check whether you are still there without having to be present with you. And this does not always mean they are plotting. It does not always mean they are sitting there thinking, I want to control this person. More often, it is a nervous system loop. They feel the discomfort of losing access to you, so they reach. Then your warmth comes back, so their discomfort drops. Then closeness starts to feel real again, so they retreat. Then loneliness returns, so they reach again. That is the loop. Lonely, reach, regulate, retreat. Lonely, reach, regulate, retreat. And if you do not understand the loop, you may mistake every reach for progress. You may think they came back because they want to build. But sometimes they came back because their loneliness got too loud. Sometimes they came back because the silence started feeling too empty. Sometimes they came back because they wanted the comfort of your presence without the responsibility of your needs. That is why the door stays cracked but locked. They want the feeling of having someone without the full responsibility of showing up as someone's partner. They want to know you are there, but not always answer what being there means. They want access to your warmth, but not the pressure of your expectations. They want the emotional benefit of connection without the emotional work of commitment. And for the anxious person, this is almost impossible to ignore. Because a cracked door does not feel like nothing. It feels like a sign. It feels like unfinished love. It feels like an invitation. It feels like maybe if you respond correctly, warmly enough, calmly enough, gently enough, the door will finally open. So you wait outside it. You interpret every movement. You notice when the light turns on. You notice when they look through the crack. You notice when they say something soft. You notice when they disappear again. And slowly, your life starts organizing itself around a door that never fully opens. Maybe for you, the cracked door is not a direct message. Maybe it is a story like, after weeks of silence. Maybe it is watching your page without speaking. Maybe it is sending a song, a meme, a memory, a small sentence that sounds harmless but feels personal. Maybe it is asking one practical question that could have been handled without emotional contact. Maybe it is coming close when you start dating someone else, then getting vague the moment you respond. The form changes, but the loop is the same. This is why low-level contact can be more addictive than no contact. No contact hurts, but it gives the body a clear reality to grieve. Low-level contact keeps reopening the question. It gives you just enough evidence to postpone acceptance. It lets your mind say, not yet, maybe soon. Maybe this means something. And because the contact is small, you may feel embarrassed by how much it affects you. You may tell yourself, it was only one text. It was only one like. It was only one soft memory. But the nervous system does not respond only to the size of the action. It responds to what the action represents. If that action represents possible return, possible repair, possible choosing, then one small signal can become emotionally huge. It is contact without clarity, access without arrival, a signal without a decision. And because the signal touches the exact place in you that wants confirmation, it can feel bigger than it actually is. This is not only about what they do, it is about what the contact does inside your body. The text lands, and your chest opens. The like appears, and your mind starts building a bridge from one small action to a whole possible future. The check-in comes, and suddenly the grief you were beginning to accept gets interrupted. That interruption is powerful. It pulls you back into analysis. What did it mean? Why now? Are they lonely? Are they jealous? Are they finally ready? Did they feel me leaving? And while your mind starts working, their system may already be settled again. That is the imbalance. One small reach can regulate them and dysregulate you. It can lower their loneliness while raising your hope. It can give them relief while giving you another round of uncertainty. In that moment, your response becomes their external regulator. They ping the connection, feel that you are still there, get the safety hit, and then emotionally log off again. There is another reason this middle place feels so powerful. It creates a ghost relationship. Not a real relationship, not a clean ending, but a quiet presence that follows you around. You are not together enough to feel secure, but you are not apart enough to fully grieve. You may still feel responsible for their moods. You may still wonder whether your silence is hurting them. You may still keep a private emotional space open in case they finally decide to step through the door. That is how the loop steals time. It does not always steal it through dramatic promises. It steals it through unfinished possibility. A possibility can feel romantic when you are hurting, but possibility without movement becomes a waiting room. And the longer you wait, the more your nervous system starts treating uncertainty like a relationship. This is the control loop. The first part of the loop is the input, loneliness. Avoidant people are often described as independent, distant, self-contained, and able to detach. But independence does not erase the human need for connection. It only changes how that need is managed. Many avoidant people still want closeness. They still want to be known. They still want warmth. They still want the feeling that someone is there. But when closeness comes with expectation, vulnerability, repair, emotional consistency, or accountability, their system can start reading connection as danger. So, total isolation hurts, but real intimacy overwhelms. That is the contradiction. Alone feels empty. Close feels consuming. Gone feels frightening. Chosen feels pressuring. So the middle becomes the safest place for them. Not alone enough to feel abandoned by the bond, not close enough to feel swallowed by it. This is why they may keep the door open. They are trying to regulate between two fears, the fear of loneliness and the fear of intimacy. Think of it like an emotional thermostat. When their loneliness gets too cold, they reach for you. When intimacy gets too hot, they pull back. In that loop, you are not being treated like a full partner. You are being used as the warmth or distance they need to manage their own internal temperature. The door opens and closes based on their internal comfort, not based on what the relationship actually needs. If they feel too far from you, they crack the door. If the contact starts becoming too real, they lock it again. And because the movement is based on their internal temperature, it can feel random to you. One day they are warm, the next day they are distant. One day they miss you, the next day they act like nothing happened. One day they seem open, the next day they vanish behind the same wall. But inside the loop, it makes sense. They are not moving according to commitment. They are moving according to regulation. They are not asking, what does this relationship need to become safe? They are asking, how much closeness can I tolerate right now without feeling overwhelmed? That is why their contact can feel both meaningful and empty. Meaningful because it may come from a real need for you. Empty because it does not always come with a real willingness to build. A check-in can be sincere and still not be commitment. A memory can be emotional and still not be repair. A soft message can be real and still not mean the door is opening. This is where the anxious person gets hooked, because anxious attachment is very sensitive to signs of aliveness. A little warmth after distance can feel like the whole relationship breathing again. You may not even need a big promise. You only need a signal. You only need a crack of light under the door. And that is exactly why the loop becomes powerful. Their small reach lowers your fear. Your warm response lowers their loneliness. Then, because their loneliness is relieved, they no longer feel the same urgency to move closer. So they retreat again. To you, this feels cruel. To their nervous system, it feels like balance. They got enough closeness to calm the loneliness, then enough distance to calm the fear of intimacy. But you are left holding the emotional cost. You are left wondering why the person who reached out now seems unavailable again. You are left asking whether you responded wrong, said too much, waited too long, seemed too eager, seemed too cold, scared them, failed them, lost them. But the loop was not created by one wrong response from you. The loop is maintained by the fact that your warmth becomes their regulation. When you respond warmly, they know you are still there. Their system relaxes. The threat of total loss drops. The fear of loneliness goes quiet. And then they can return to distance with less panic because they have confirmed that the door is still open from your side. That is the painful part. Sometimes your hope becomes the proof they use to avoid choosing. Not because you are weak, but because the loop rewards your availability. Every time they reach and you give full emotional warmth without a requirement, the loop learns it can continue. They do not have to enter the room. They only have to knock. They do not have to define the relationship. They only have to remind you the door exists. They do not have to repair the damage. They only have to create enough contact for the ache to soften. And this is why you can feel used, even when they are not trying to use you. Your body senses that you are being emotionally accessed without being emotionally chosen. Your body senses that the door is open only when they need air, not when you need safety. Your body senses that your warmth is being treated like a backup power source for someone else's loneliness. And that is exhausting. Because you are not a charging station. You are not a waiting room. You are not an emotional hallway someone visits when the room of loneliness gets too cold. You are a person. You need clarity. You need consistency. You need a relationship that does not only appear when the other person needs regulation. The second part of the loop is the boundary. They keep you close enough to feel connected, but far enough to avoid responsibility. This is where the door metaphor matters. A fully closed door would mean loss. A fully open door would mean intimacy. So, they choose the crack. The crack lets them see you. The crack lets them hear you. The crack lets them know you are there. But the lock protects them from the full experience of being known, needed, questioned, or accountable. This is why their contact may feel carefully measured. They may send a message that is warm but not too direct. They may react to something but not start a real conversation. They may say they miss you but avoid what that means. They may bring up the past but not discuss the future. They may ask how you are but not answer where you stand. They may get sentimental but not specific. They may want access to the bond without naming the bond. And because each little contact has emotion inside it, it can be hard to call it empty. It is not empty. It is limited. That distinction matters. Limited contact can still carry feeling. Limited contact can still stir your heart. Limited contact can still be honest in the moment. But limited contact is not the same as a relationship that is being built. A doorway is not a home. A message is not a plan. A memory is not repair. A soft check-in is not the same as presence. This is why the viewer has to stop asking only, do they care? That question will keep you trapped. Because the answer may be yes. They may care. They may think about you. They may miss you. They may feel safer knowing you still exist somewhere in their world. But the better question is, what does their care actually do? Does it build anything? Does it repair anything? Does it make the relationship clearer? Does it help you feel safer? Does it turn into presence? Does it turn into honesty? Does it turn into a real conversation about what is happening? Or does it only open the door for a moment before locking it again? Care that never becomes clarity can still keep you stuck. Feeling that never becomes responsibility can still hurt you. Missing you without choosing you can still drain your life. And when you are in the middle place, you can start confusing emotional access with emotional progress. Access means they can still reach you. Progress means something is actually becoming healthier. Access means the door is not fully closed. Progress means the lock is being removed. Access means they can feel connected when they need to. Progress means both people can stand in the room and tell the truth. That is the difference. If the door is open, but you are still outside, access is not enough. If they keep checking whether you are there, but never create a relationship where you can rest, access is not enough. If they keep returning to your warmth, but disappearing from your needs, access is not enough. And this is where the door becomes a contract you never consciously signed. They keep one foot near you, and you keep one part of yourself available. They do not say, "Wait for me," but the pattern trains you to wait. They do not say, "Do not move on," but the timing of their reach interrupts your moving on. They do not say, "I choose you," but the warmth makes you feel temporarily chosen. This is how ambiguity becomes control without anyone saying the word control. The uncertainty itself starts managing your behavior. You hesitate before dating. You hesitate before posting. You hesitate before closing your heart. You keep asking whether leaving would be unfair, even though staying in limbo has been unfair to you. The third part of the loop is your response. This is the part that has to be said gently but clearly. Your hope can feed the loop. Not because you were doing something wrong by caring, not because you caused their avoidance, but because the loop needs your availability to keep functioning. When they crack the door and you rush toward it, they get confirmation that you are still there. When they send a small message and you give a full emotional response, they get relief. When they offer a vague check-in and you treat it like a new beginning, the loop gets energy. When they say just enough to make you soften and you drop every requirement because you are afraid of scaring them away, the loop learns that warmth is enough to reset access. This is why you can end up feeling powerless. You are waiting for them to decide whether the door opens. You are trying to read the hinges. You are trying to understand the lock. You are trying to guess whether the next message means they are ready. But the door is not only theirs to manage. You also have a side of the door. You also have a choice about whether you keep standing there. You also have a choice about whether access to you remains available without clarity. This is not about playing games. It is not about punishing them. It is not about becoming cold so they chase. It is about ending your role as the emotional supply that keeps the loop stable, while your own nervous system stays unstable. If the door keeps opening only when they feel lonely and closing when you need closeness, you are not in a relationship. You are in their regulation system. And that is not love you can live inside. Breaking the loop does not require a dramatic speech. It requires a different relationship with access. Access to you has to mean something again. Your warmth cannot stay available to every small signal that arrives without clarity. Your attention cannot keep functioning like an emergency light for someone who only turns toward you when their own loneliness gets dark. That does not mean you become cruel. It means you become clear. It means you stop confusing compassion with unlimited availability. It means you can care about someone and still refuse to be kept as emotional insurance. You break the loop by shifting from response to requirement. Response says, they reached out, so I should be warm enough to keep them close. Requirement says, if this door is open, what are we actually doing with it? Response says, I do not want to ruin the moment. Requirement says, a moment that cannot handle clarity is not enough for me anymore. Response says, maybe this means they are coming back. Requirement says, coming back to access me is not the same as choosing me. That shift is where your power returns. Not control over them, control over your own availability. You stop treating every crack in the door as a miracle. You stop treating low-level contact as proof of change. You stop letting their loneliness decide when your heart becomes available. And you start asking the simple questions that the loop tries to avoid. Are you here to build something? Or are you here because you feel lonely tonight? Are you opening this door to have an honest conversation? Or are you opening it just enough to know I am still here? Are you willing to step into clarity? Or do you only want the comfort of knowing I have not left? You do not have to say those exact words every time, but you have to know them inside yourself. Because if you do not know the requirement, their smallest reach will keep becoming your biggest hope. And that hope will keep you standing outside a door that never fully opens. Real closeness does not require you to live in the hallway. Real closeness does not keep you guessing whether you are allowed in. Real closeness does not offer a crack of warmth and then call your need for clarity pressure. Real closeness can handle the question, what are we doing? Real closeness can handle the truth that access is not enough. This is the final truth. A cracked door can feel powerful when you have been locked out. But if the door stays cracked forever, it becomes another kind of prison. You can see the light, but you cannot live in it. You can hear the warmth, but you cannot rest inside it. You can feel the possibility, but you cannot build a life on possibility alone. You are allowed to stop waiting outside someone's half-open door. You are allowed to stop being the warmth they reach for when loneliness gets loud. You are allowed to want more than a place in the middle. You are allowed to want a relationship where the door opens because both people are ready to enter, not because one person got cold and needed emotional air. If they keep the door open but never let you in, the question is not how much longer you should wait. The question is what that door is costing you. Your peace, your time, your self-trust, your ability to receive love from someone who does not make access feel like intimacy. They may care. They may miss you. They may reach again. But if every reach only reopens the hallway and never builds the home, you are allowed to close the door from your side. Not to punish them, not to prove a point, but because your life cannot be lived in someone else's maybe. They are not keeping the connection alive if they only keep loneliness away. They are not choosing you if they only keep access to you. They are not letting you in if the door stays open but still locked. If this helped your body feel a little safer, liking this video helps it reach someone else who needs this clarity. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.